Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. How is everyone holding up? Thank you again for being here on to the next session of BESA, which is week 04. We are so much excited to talk about lots of interesting stuff, share some of the insights, and hope to make you a better solution architect or a better technical person. Not just technical, but also a lot of behavioral things. So we'll start discussing things as we move forward. As we go forward, I just want everyone to just put me into the chat how you spent your last week. Was it too busy? Was it okay? Was it keeping you on your toes, or how it went? Did you take it slowly? Was it very fast? Let me know into the chat. My week was complicated. We had a London summit. I'll talk more on that. But yeah, that was interesting to meet a lot of you there. Let me know how your week went. Very busy with work, Anupama. Makes sense? Yep, that's you. Do you like busy week? I like busy week, to be honest. Busy in the sense that I don't want to be get swamped, but I still want to have one task to another to another to another. That's my way of working. But yeah, let's see how other people respond. What happened with others? Let's see it quickly. Yeah, prepared for essay and cleared. Wow, that's so good news. Congratulations, Lakshmi. That's so good to hear that you passed solution architect, and probably we could ask you to answer some questions at all. Good morning, Pawan. Good to have you here. And then we have completely occupied on client visit, Naveen. Good thing. Client interactions are always interesting, and obviously gives a lot of insight. Too busy. Nice. Could make sense. Then let's talk about Lynette. A lot of networking from Connected Africa Summit. Yeah, I had heard about Africa Summit. It's good to have all these things, and we will talk a little bit on the London Summit. And Shoaib, sorry to hear that you were sick. Hope you get prepared, more energy to you, and hopefully you recover soon and move forward from there. So I'll quickly get started. Obviously, there are a lot of things we want to cover, and we always run on short on time. So I'll add things to stage, and we'll get started. So today's topic is Lord of the Matrix. Lord of the Ring inspired. Yeah, I'm a fantasy fan. I like seeing all these movies, so I can't stop adding these things into my own session. So we will talk about metrics. We will talk about things related to monitoring. We will talk related to cloud, to cost. So we'll discuss lots of things. Let me quickly add everyone from the team to the stage. They will say hi, and then we will move forward from there. So I'm adding Parna, Nicole, I'm adding Prasad, I am adding Remy, and I am adding Kapil. So all of us are here. Please keep your questions coming, and we will try to answer as much as we can. And today we'll talk a little bit on the batch billing, pricing, and other information. So I'll add remove everyone as of now, and we will keep on adding people as we need. And keep your questions coming. We are answering them into chat as much as we can answer. We would try our best to answer those particular questions as you have it. So we are on batch 05, week 04, 27th of April, and these will be recorded, so you could obviously go ahead and watch it again. I highly recommend you watch it again. Just starting with some of the information from Summit. We had really interesting time at Summit. I really liked to meet a lot of people which has come up, and thank you for stopping by and saying hello. And obviously we have not able to meet everyone, but we tried our best to be available, and thanks everyone for your time who showed up and helped us with session. And it was good to see all these familiar faces, not just from chat but also in person. So that was really good. And there will be more summits coming up, and some of us would be traveling, so you could find us into different summits, so shouldn't be a problem. And now I'm coming back to the domain part, what we are going to discuss. I had to make some changes, or we had to make some changes, because the time is always limited, and we are not able to cover everything within the time frame, and I don't want to rush anything. So what we have now, we will focus on the topics first, and then we will keep the behavioral track little separate. We will include those behavioral tracks into the bonus session. So today we are on week 4. We'll talk about billing, pricing, and support, and only for regular people we would be hosting bonus session. We would cover well architected there, and we will be also covering that behavioral track into that particular session. So stick around, don't fall behind. Maybe if you are not able to watch one or two of them, that's completely fine. You can always catch up with on YouTube, but please be around for most of the session so that you can be entitled for these bonus sessions as we speak. Now, if you remember, I talked about YouTube Shorts, so I have started sharing some questions onto YouTube. So please check that. I'm picking questions as I get time. I try to post weekly a video every week, every day. So probably you should find some information there too. Shouldn't be a problem. Now we will talk about monitoring, and I would add Parna now to stage, and we would try to act like we are a customer and AWS expert. I'm not the 100% expert, but I'll try my best to give some examples. So welcome Parna, and let's start our discussion about monitoring. And keep your questions coming, everyone. Thank you.
All right.
Welcome,
Hello,
Parna.
folks. Hi, Ashish. I'm so glad to have you here. I have a bag full of questions for you. I have a lot of workloads which are running on AWS. Some of them have been modernized using serverless, some of them have been migrated. But I'm really confused. I don't know how to
Okay.
monitor my systems. My team
I
is
want
really
to I
confused.
want to start with a disclaimer, Parna, that I'll try my best, but I do not know everything. I am not Google, so just give me some slack. I'll try my best to explain as much as I know. But yeah, if I do not know the answer, I would reach out to documentation or people and come back with the answer. So let's go ahead.
Sure. All right. So, firstly, as I said, we have modernized some of our workloads and we are using serverless. We have also been using some managed services like RDS, Relational Database Service. We are using file services, managed services like EFS. Now, what I would like to know is, do I need to really manage the monitoring for these managed services as well? Does my team need to do that, or will AWS do that for me? So
Good
you could
question.
probably start with that.
Okay, yeah, good. Now, I want to take a step back and I want to talk about that why somebody would monitor, right? It's not like that it is just we want to monitor, but there is some business objective we are trying to solve. So, why we want to monitor, I would try to talk about that and probably you could frame your questions around it. Hopefully, that should be answering some of the question and feel free to interrupt me if I am going too off track. So,
Sure.
first thing is that if I deployed something, is it performing as expected or not? Am I getting the performance my customers are expecting, or is it just running at the very slow speed and people are complaining and I'm losing business? So that's why I want to monitor. I want to ensure whatever I deployed is performing as expected or not. Second, I may want to monitor something to see if I'm utilizing things or not. So maybe I deployed a RDS with 16 CPU and 64 GB of RAM, but I'm using 5% of that. So I'm wasting my resources in that manner. So I want to ensure that I'm utilizing those resources, and it works both ways. What if you deployed a machine or a server which is with 2 CPU and it is always 100% utilized? So that means that there is some challenges and that we have to figure out that how we can make it right and we can right size that instance. So that is a utilization thing that why customers monitor. Third is the health. So it may look like that everything is working fine, but is my end application working fine or not? Is my health of the application as expected or not? So that's why somebody would monitor. So health is important. And then obviously you may monitor for any security incident. So what if somebody has hacked into my system or somebody misusing it or somebody has used my resources to launch an attack or maybe somebody used my instances to run a Bitcoin mining machine. So I want to monitor that too. So these are the four major categories why we monitor performance, utilization, health, and security. Good. Now, your
Right.
question I come back to that you asked that if it is a managed service, should I monitor or not? I want to take a little more deep dive here. When I'm talking about monitoring, I would probably configure and identify two type of things which is coming from monitoring. Let me try to write it down that what I would consider to be monitoring. I would be monitoring my business metrics, right? So business metrics are important because this is what pertains to business, and I would also be monitoring my system metrics. Now system metrics, I am using a generic word here. You could call it your application metrics, you could call it your infrastructure metrics, and at all. Let me explain what a business metrics is. So if you are a business, let's say you are a business like Amazon.com. So you may want to monitor a few things like, hey, how many visitors are coming to my website? How many checkouts are happening? How many products are being sold per minute? So I'm interested to know that from a business perspective. Now,
Can I
if
pick
I'm
and choose?
Netflix, go
So,
ahead.
Ashish, can I pick and choose which metrics I want, or AWS
Yeah,
gives me?
means See, obviously, because you know your business better. As a technical company, AWS, we do not know that what is important to your business. Maybe more visits to your website is important, or maybe more checkout is important, or maybe more of the product document or product page visit is important. So you decide as a business which metrics make sense to you, and then you move forward for monitoring those specific metrics. So business metrics, obviously, a business decides maybe if it is Netflix, maybe number of visitor, maybe if it is a service like StreamYard, that with the information they would like to monitor is that how long a particular person streams. If it is YouTube, maybe they want to track how many visits happen. So it depends from business. So business metrics is purely business driven. AWS has no say on that. You may want to monitor it, you may not want to monitor it, but obviously there are tools available who can help you with business metrics collection too.
All right. So I can
Now,
customize them as per my requirement, right?
yes. So some things which you can clearly see, and something you may have to engineer those solution within your application so that that specific metrics comes out. So maybe thing would be, let's say you have a third party application or where you are doing a payment check, so validity of the payment when somebody checks
Right.
out. So that time you may track that how many API call I made to that third party and how many were successful, how many has failed. So if I am counting that successful API call, probably it will give me idea that how many times somebody has purchased something or a financial transaction happened in my environment or not. So that is a business metric.
That
Now comes
helps.
system metrics. System metrics could be related to your server, maybe your databases, maybe your load balancer, maybe your queue, maybe the latency. So the system supports your business. So system metrics, if they are fine, that may mean business is also fine, but not the other way around. So business metrics may be completely screwed and system may still be working fine. So your RDS is working fine, but let's say there was a problem and nobody is able to reach out to your front end at all. And that's why there is no business happening. System is still working fine, but it is not reflecting into your business. So that's why both of them are important to monitor, business as well as system metrics.
I get that. And I just have a follow-up question. So I have a couple of applications which are running on premises also. So can I capture metrics from my on-premise servers as well?
Yes, so I want to talk a little bit here on a service which can be helpful in monitoring. That is what we call as a CloudWatch as a service. So obviously you need an interface where all these metrics can be delivered to you. And for that, we could use a service like CloudWatch. So let me try to draw something related to why the service CloudWatch could be useful and what we want to achieve from it. So when I'm talking about CloudWatch, it can be used to monitor your system metrics, and you can monitor your business metrics also from that, provided you provide that information here. So what you could do, you could have CloudWatch as a service, and then you could start collecting metrics from on-premises as well as your cloud infrastructure. And when these metrics, you select what you need performance data, you need health data, and that time you should be able to send this information to CloudWatch. And once the data is available into CloudWatch interface, afterward, I could analyze metrics from that. Metrics is what you can quantifiable measure, like number of connections made, number of sales happened, maybe CPU utilization, maybe memory utilization. That is what the metrics is, which is CPU, RAM, and all these type of things. So those are called metrics. Then you could collect logs. Let's say you're running a web server. So it may track that how many users logged in. It may track how many times 404 thing happened or 404 error happened. So that can be collected through log. And CloudWatch initially had another feature called events. So you could track event. Event could be someone making changes in your application and infrastructure, like somebody starting an auto scaling group, or somebody disabling something, or somebody enabling something. So event can also be tracked, but we have now forked it out. We have made it a separate service called Event Bridge. So CloudWatch can give you some information, and when you augment it with Event Bridge, you would get the holistic view of whatever is happening within your system. So yes, both thing, on-prem cloud, we have agent-based architecture, so you can install, and through that you could get information into your CloudWatch, and afterward you could start monitoring whatever you need. Does it make
All
sense?
right. Yeah, that's great. So I just have another question. So how frequently are these metrics collected? I mean, do I have control on that?
Yep. Good question. I want to talk a little bit more on that. So when you are talking about services like CloudWatch, what we prefer here that we provide you some metrics which we call standard metrics, which we know that most customers need it. So we have created this infrastructure that if it is, let's say, EC2, we monitor how much was the CPU utilization on that. If it is a DynamoDB, we may monitor that what is the read capacity utilization or write capacity utilization. So common thing we always provide into standard metrics, and if you want your own metrics to be delivered, we support a feature called custom metrics, and through that you can capture maybe your business information, maybe some other detail if you need to. Let me give an example here, like what could be the business metrics. Let's say you are a Uber like service where you are providing taxi services, right? And if it rains, it is probability that there will be more taxi demand. People would be interested to get more taxis to go from point A to point B. So you could configure your weather forecasting services who can send information to CloudWatch, and when CloudWatch detects that okay, the possibility of rain is more than 80% for the 4 hour, it can trigger something behind the scene and add more capacity to your application. So it is not just technical information, it could be any type of metric which you can push into CloudWatch and you can then utilize it. A technical term we use for these type of metrics is what we call them is a time series data. So basically at particular time what was the value, next time what was the value, after 5 minutes what was the value. So we collect these metrics as time series data, and you can obviously put some average, minimum, maximum, and then create some configuration around it. Shouldn't be a problem. So that is standard. Custom, you decide. And when you are deciding it, standard metrics by default we collect every 5 minutes from most resources, and then when it is custom metrics, obviously you can decide on the frequency, how long and how fast you want to collect. So it depends purely customer use cases. So that is completely possible.
That's great. So these metrics, after I collect them, you mentioned that I could trigger some kind of reaction or action using these metrics. So
Yep.
can you give me some examples of what I can do, what kind of actions it can trigger?
Yep. I would give my favorite answer. I would say it depends. So it depends on what you are trying to achieve from it. Let's say a very simple example is, let's say you are monitoring a DynamoDB database and you realize that you have consumed all the read capacity unit you have associated. So what I want CloudWatch now to go ahead and adjust my read capacity unit onto my DynamoDB table. So that could be one example,
That's
right?
great. Yeah.
Now, you could obviously say now we don't want to adjust it. Maybe I want to inform through CloudWatch through some other tool, let's say a Lambda or a SNS service, notification service, and this should just log a ticket into my ticketing system and my engineers would look into the ticket, or I just want somebody to be paid or emailed so that they can look into it. So it depends on how you want to do it. You may take some manual action if you need. If you can take automated action, that would be the best option. But it purely depends on what you want to achieve once a metrics happen or once a metrics is there. I have to explain you that little bit here, that how we collect these metrics and what happens behind the scenes. So give me a minute. I'll try to explain and then you can have a follow-up
Sure.
question on top of it. So first thing we discuss here is a custom metrics. So let's say this is a service, or maybe it is a EC2 machine, it is on-prem or cloud, doesn't matter. You could have here a agent installed, and that agent can send metrics information to AWS endpoint. By default, it is a public endpoint which we are talking to, but if this EC2 is running within a VPC, you could create a private communication also through private link, should not be a problem. And once this CloudWatch service endpoint receives this information, it can be then keeping that information as long as you want. So 15 months is the default, but obviously there are more configurational changes available. And if you are talking to an AWS endpoint as expected, you would need to have some credential configured, and that will be done through role and the policy, in which you may say, hey, I want to perform a put metrics operation, so let me give only permission for put metrics policy, and that's how CloudWatch would be able to handle that much information which is coming in. And this unified agent can collect your metrics information, can collect your log information, and it can be running from a on-prem system or it can be running on a EC2 machine, should not be a problem. Now,
All right.
coming to your question that what can be done to once I get these metrics, is there a action which I can take? So for those type of action, we can use something called alarms. So alarms will be the best places. So you select something and then based on that you trigger alarm. Like if I give you an analogy, in your house you may have a fire alarm, right? So if it detects temperature, if it detects smoke, it may start alarm. Or maybe you have a fire alarm, or maybe you have an alarm for waking up. So when an event happens, 7 o'clock, wake up alarm triggers, and it will then make a buzzing sound which will wake you up. So that is how alarms work. So you set a specific threshold. If that threshold is met, then the alarm would trigger, and specific on the what you configured in the alarm, either it would take a manual action or it would allow you to take a automated action if the need be. Should not be a problem at all.
That sounds great. So, Ashish, does auto scaling also can it be combined with these alarms as well
Yes,
as
why not? So
those run books, both of them?
exactly. So CloudWatch works independently, but what you will find most of the time customer do, they combine CloudWatch with something like auto scaling groups, and then we have ELB also. So I call them that the triad of the services. Once you configure them properly, what can happen that your ELB can start receiving information. You could monitor ELB that, let's say, number of connections are increasing, that can trigger a alarm into CloudWatch, and based on that, then you may have more capacity added to your backend services. Should not be a problem. So backend can add more capacity, remove capacity based on the metrics information you are getting.
That's wonderful.
Makes sense.
But it must be a lot of metrics, right? I mean, do I need to keep on moving from service to service on my management console to look at all these metrics? Isn't there a easier way? I may not be concerned with all of them, right?
Agree, because sometimes too much information makes you like paralyzed in making your decision. So analysis paralysis, as we call it. So what we could do, we could give you some common metrics into standard dashboard. So if I show you some CloudWatch dashboard, we provide you some ready to use dashboards. Let me bring the slide, the console here. So I'm on a console, and I may go to the service which is called CloudWatch, and we can see some information there. CloudWatch, and I'm going to CloudWatch as a service. So we can monitor resource and application. Resource we mean services, application means your business application. So once I'm here, I would see some standard information, and then I can customize that information if the need be. So if I'm going here, we provide you some default dashboard to get started. So we know what are the common metrics customers monitor, and that we have put it into something like automated dashboard. So let's say I just want to have billing information, or I'm just monitoring DynamoDB. A DynamoDB may give you hundreds of information to monitor. So what
Exactly.
specifically I'm looking for, I could have these information here. So we are monitoring, let's say, successful request, request and response, throttling, any errors which are happening, and you can obviously customize all these components if the need be. You could select the granularity here. So I may want to see information about 1 hour, or I may want to see the information about 1 week, or any custom information. Shouldn't be a problem. So these are called your default dashboard or automated dashboard, but obviously depending on your use case, like if you see here, I have created some dashboard here like dashboard 1, summit dashboard. So I should have data coming from various services into one single dashboard if the need be. And concept is pretty simple. You create a dashboard and you say I want a widget, and if you see, these are the different components. Some information would be better suited for numbers, some would be better in gauge, some table, some bar, pie chart, and I can start creating those things. So let's say I want to display some number, and if you look here, see this. Default, we are collecting metrics from CloudWatch, but we could connect to other data types too, as you could see here, other data sources also. So it could be third parties who are sending information, and we can put into a business information. And business graphics or business dashboard can more appeal to your CEO, CTO, or decision maker, whereas your system metrics may appeal more to your technical people like systems engineer, operations people, or maybe maintenance people. So they can be selected, and here once I select it, I should be able to select which specific metrics I need. Let's say I need information about billing, and in that I want to get information about a specific linked account, and I want to know the estimated charges for the specific account like this or this. I could have added, and now my widget is available. Pretty simple. You could see I'm paying $342 for this particular account, and for this account I'm just paying $0.2. And once this is ready, you could obviously go ahead and make it full screen and then save it if the need be. Don't forget to save, because by default it is not saved. So once your work is done, go ahead and save it. So this widget would be available to anyone who wants to look at it.
That's amazing. So I have seen couple of these metrics, but I have never enabled them. Like for just now, you showed me for DynamoDB or for EC2. So am I going to be paying for these metrics, or it's included as a part of the service I'm using?
Good question. So yeah, obviously money is important. We need to always think about how much we have to pay. So standard metrics collection is almost free. In some very specific services, there would be charges, but standard metrics are by default enabled for you. But once you are looking for custom metrics, that time you have some charges to pay for those services. And obviously it will also depend on what is the frequency of the collection, how long you want to retain, how many metrics you are sending in. So basically how many API calls you are making to CloudWatch as a service, that counts toward the charges, and how long you retain that data, that also contribute a significant portion of the charges.
Makes sense. Great. So
And
I
one
think
more information for people, sorry Parna. So people
yeah.
who are joining us or watching it, we would include these links. So there's a workshop studio where you can find more information if you want to practice. These workshop studios would give you hands-on approach where you would collect different metrics and then see them into action. So these links will really be helpful if you want to move further into that. Shouldn't be an issue. Sorry, go ahead.
So you mentioned that you can use CloudWatch for collecting logs as well, right? So for these logs, how long are these logs retained for, and where are these logs stored? I mean, I am
Okay.
assuming it's stored somewhere, and I don't want to keep paying for it if they accumulate over the time. Give me a little overview on that.
Okay. So yeah, so we need to first understand that logs are different than metrics. Metrics are static values, like what was my CPU utilization, or how much I paid for electricity this month in my house, or what was the temperature of my living room at this particular time. Those are metrics. Whereas logs is like, if you know about some pilots or maybe some specific drivers, they maintain a log that at particular time I was here, this was the mileage report, this is how much I traveled, next hour this is my log report. So log keeps detailed information of everything which happened into the system. Somebody logged in, they browsed this page, they disconnected, they joined back, this was their IP, this is where they come from, what they requested. So logs are more detailed, and that can be captured too through CloudWatch services, but the metrics is captured little differently. Let me talk little bit on the log. So concept is same. You could still use AWS services to capture this information coming from AWS or on-prem. You can collect log files from that. How it is done, I'll explain it. But you send this information to CloudWatch log service, and once log service is having this data available, you could store that into Amazon S3 for as long as you want. And if you know about from previous discussions we had, we have something called life cycle policies. So through this life cycle policy, you could retain it for 1 day, 1 year, 10 year. Purely it is your decision how much you want to pay for it and how long you want to retain, and then you can move it to Glacier or other services to keep your cost low. So that is one thing in terms of how much you would end up paying for your logs.
Okay. Can I also control the level of the logging? Suppose I just don't want debug logs. I just want error
Exactly,
logs.
that's completely, it's your log and you decide what has to be recorded. It's not like all or nothing type of scenario. So what happens in this situation, when you have to publish the log, you have to create some configurational setting, because we do not know what we should collect from your system. So what you
Of
do
course.
on your system where you want to collect log, you install something called unified CW agent or CloudWatch agent. Why we are calling it unified? Because the same agent can collect log information and it can collect your metrics information. Previously, it was a separate agent for log and a separate agent for metrics, but now it is a single agent who can perform everything. And in most Amazon Linux machine, this agent is already installed. You just need to configure it and it would start sending information there. So how you configure this agent? What we do here, we first select which file we want to monitor. Let's say if I am talking about Apache. So Apache may have a file called error.log. So there is error.log file in Apache. There is access.log file into Apache. There may be something else xyz.log file in Apache. So I decide which specific file I monitor and how long I want to, or which specific details I want to monitor on that. I will come on to details. So what we do first, once you have these log files to monitor, I would be sending this information to the CloudWatch service as we see here. So we would have this unified agent scan this information. Obviously, role and policy is required, and we will send everything to AWS. Now, filtering happens differently. We don't want to put pressure onto client. So what we do from client, we cover everything in the file and we push this information into something called log groups. So we create here something called log groups. So when you go to services, you may find a log group which is for EC2, another log group for DynamoDB, another for Lambda function. So all of this information is pushed together into a log group. And in that log group, we define that, hey, how long you want to retain, what are the monitoring and access control, because I don't want everyone to see my log. So I may want to put some restriction that my financial log can only be seen by few people. Not everyone should be able to see it. So that all is controlled on log group level. So we select those log groups there. Within that log group, what we get something called log stream. So let's say EC2 is a log group which will capture information about every EC2 machine, but obviously I don't want to mix all EC2 machines data. So EC2 instance 1 would have one log stream, second EC2 instance would have its second log stream, and within that events are captured, what time that particular action performed, who performed it, those type of data. But it is application layer, it is collecting data from your operating system or application for which you are enabling the monitoring. It is not system monitoring, it is your application monitoring log which we are collecting from these services. Does it make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. So I was just wondering. So we were talking about EC2. What about Lambda? Because in Lambda, we have never really installed any agent, and we still get those logs. So how is that
Exactly.
working?
So yeah, means for some services we have made integration, and something where you do not get an option to install agent, we take care of that. Like DynamoDB, that
Okay.
log we capture. S3, we capture those log by default for you. Same is for Lambda function. So when you are launching a Lambda function, you should be able to get this information and then get started from there. So Lambda by default has log, and through that default log, you should have no problem in accessing everything on Lambda. So Lambda would be a log group. Within that there would be stream, and within that there would be log event on which we capture all the information. So Lambda has
Makes
default
sense.
integration with CloudWatch log. Obviously, you still need to have a permission created, and through that only you would get access to the log file.
Okay. So these roles for transmitting or publishing these metrics, I need to set it up, right?
Yeah,
After
so
installing the
so
agent.
you associate a role with Lambda, and with that role you associate a permission which will give information like put metrics and then other things. Let me quickly show that so you can easily relate that what I am trying to talk about here. Give me a minute, I'll try to access console and we can go from there. So let's say I go to a service, let's say a Lambda function, and probably people who do not know Lambda, we will be discussing that in detail into the coming section. It is a serverless way of delivering services. So let's say this is my function 01, a random function I have created. If you look into its configuration, you would find out associated information on that. So here are my permission, and in this permission I have these three log permission associated. What are the action I am allowing? I am allowing this Lambda to perform creation of a log group. It is able to create a log stream, and it can then put log events on that. So this is basically allowing Lambda to create a log stream, push information on that, and then create a log group where it will be residing. So this is all are the default permission. As soon as you create a Lambda, this will automatically be created for you. You don't have to do anything on that.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Right. So logs are interesting, and again, if it is going into S3, you decide how you long want to keep it,
Hmm.
what are the requirement, who should get access, who should not get access. So this all are coming into log group, and here I have put some steps. So you could install CloudWatch agent, configure it, you could monitor role, and then start that agent. Should not be a problem. Now I want to talk about one more capability here, Parna, about log groups. Let's say
Okay.
I am collecting error log from Apache. So I have error logs collected. Now, I want to maybe trigger something based on the error log. My requirement is If I am
Exactly.
getting 404 error for more than 10 minutes in a file, I want to trigger a alarm or trigger a backend engine or maybe trigger and create a ticket. So for those
Right.
type of thing, what we can do, we can create filter into the log. So logs are continuously coming. It is in a way streaming traffic. So once the streaming traffic comes in, we can go ahead and create a filter. We could put a
Okay.
pattern we are looking for, we can associate with that alarm, and then we can get notified about it. So let's say if I am having lot of failed payment requests coming in, I want to track, hey, what happened? Is my third party not allowing me to receive the payment? Is it issue with my application, or is it something else? So obviously we can have filters on top, let the all data come in, create a filter, and based on that you could go ahead and use that. Like one example I could share, like let me collect data for all the login attempts, and if those login attempts are failing, let's say 10 failed login attempt in 5-minute interval, looks like something fishy, let me go ahead and disable that user's account or reset password of that user account and inform that user manually, so that do not I have a safeguarded against any attack which may happen. So obviously lot of actions can be created if the need be.
I think this is great. So basically, it's just like the other metrics, right? So we can set up an alarm based on this and then trigger off some notifications, emails, and
Exactly.
probably, like you said, just remove the user, right? The IAM user as well.
It's
Okay.
a
So,
little different because in metrics you set a threshold.
hmm,
You say if CPU utilization goes beyond 50%, I want to trigger an alarm.
hmm.
What you do here mostly, you set up a pattern. So I want to monitor 404 error. I want to monitor failed attempt. I want to monitor XYZ event. So here you mostly set pattern, and those pattern can then be used as a trigger point. But in
Okay.
CloudWatch metrics, metrics itself becomes a trigger point.
I get it. So it can be a regular expression also
Right.
for a
It is,
pattern.
that's what we needed, because we don't
Okay.
want to create like a generic expression for every, oh, sorry, specific expression for everything. So you could
Got it.
use your wildcards and you can use your question mark, star, and other format to create a matrix filter. And based on that, we should be able to capture information. Shouldn't be an issue at all.
Makes sense. All right. I think that's a
And
really good feature.
one more thing I want to talk here, as a question has come about something called insights. So
Hmm.
insights are something, let's say I'm not a very tech savvy user. You are getting so much logs for me, you are getting so much metrics for me. Can you give me some information? Can you analyze it for me instead of I go and analyze everything? So that is where insight comes into picture. So insight adds brain on top of the data we collected. It performs its own analysis, it understands what are the metrics, and then gives you some business information like, hey, it looks like this service is performing slow, or this is where we are seeing a lot of errors, or this is where we are having a bottleneck created. So insight adds analysis capability automatically once you have collected the metrics information. So that is another good feature which you can be utilizing to get sense of the data you collected.
So I've heard that we can query into it, right? So there's some kind of query language that I need to write, and I've even heard these days you can put in a natural language expression and it will convert it. Is that capability within Insights itself?
Yeah, so Insight will give you like a pool of data. And obviously, when it is a pool of data, I need a way to filter out what I am specifically needed. So it is similar language, and MySQL or SQL type of syntax are there, but it has some very specific parameters which I have to provide. And once I provide that into a query format, I should be able to generate these queries. And obviously, I could automate these queries. I do not have to keep that into manual way. Once I automate based on the query result, I can further trigger a Lambda function or a step machine, and I can keep on automating as much as I want. Should not be an issue. But yes, you can run queries on that. Shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. And any benefits you see in these AWS native monitoring services as opposed to me picking up some third party ones? So obviously, I can see CloudWatch has a whole lot of features, but there are a lot of even partners of ours who are suggesting different third party ones. Any other benefit do you see here?
I would again answer with it depends. So it
Hmm.
depends on what you are trying to collect from. What happens sometimes, Parna, that customer may be migrating, let's say, from on-prem, and their team is already aware about how, let's say, Datadog works, or they have already completed metric collection from Dynatrace. So they already know that platform, they have built automation around it, they may have built
Or
dashboard around it. So
mm,
that time they don't want to learn a new skill, they already have a skill. Why don't
mm,
I put it into action? And they may want to keep on utilizing those specific information. And obviously, partner may work on a very specific area. Let's say some partner may give you information purely on health checks, some may give you only compliance information,
right.
some may give you specific on security. So they have niche areas where they work on, whereas we work for the generous information. So anything most probably should be covered by CloudWatch. But if you are looking for very specific metrics, very specific dashboard, very specific reporting, probably partner solutions can augment what CloudWatch is offering you.
Makes sense. Sure.
Hope I'm
All
not
right.
boring you. You're getting answer to your
Yeah, yeah,
questions.
yeah, definitely. I remember you began by telling us about monitoring, and then there is observability also. So, what's the difference, and which services do we have there? Does CloudWatch come under monitoring or observability? So, there's some amount of confusion there as well. If you can just clarify those.
Yeah. So monitoring, I'll give you a very basic example, but yeah, means maybe a funny incident from my childhood. So obviously, I'm not sure how many of you know about this, but in most places, like when you get milk, so fresh milk is delivered home, and then you boil it so that it is preserved for longer period or whatever impurities are there. So I was a kid, and my mother put a milk pot onto gas or a burner and asked me that, hey, watch it. The intention was that if the milk goes boiling point, I should go and switch off the gas, or I should inform her so that the milk will not spill over. But I was a kid, so I was monitoring it. And when it spill over, I ran to my mother and said, hey, the milk has spill over, it has boiled already. That was I was doing was monitoring. If I was doing observability, what I would do, I would be seeing things from a holistic view. I would see that okay, the milk has been boiling from 10 minutes. Probably it is reaching to its boiling point. The vehicle or the pot which I have has some space, is a headroom where it can go for further. And before that, I have to go and switch off the gas or switch or call my mother or do something or remove the pot from the heat. So that is observability. Observability is when you are not just monitoring, but you are taking an action to make
Mm,
sure that your system keeps working operationally healthy and it remains in a healthy state in observable fashion. So what we do, we monitor, we collect log, and we add one more thing on that, which is called traceability or tracking. So through tracking, we should be able to use it. So once we combine these three things, logs, metrics, and traces, that is what we call AWS observability. And we have services like CloudWatch can help you with logs, it can help you with metrics. But when it comes to traces, then you use a service which is called AWS X-Ray, and it gives you more holistic view of internal requests when they are talking to each other. So that can be done on that.
all right. So I hear X-ray is really good when it comes to serverless application. So we've had suggestions from my team that we should probably use that. So how does X-ray work? Does that also have an agent? How do you turn it on or enable it?
So for some services, Purna, X-Ray by default captures metrics. Once you enable permissions on that for like Lambda, DynamoDB, SNS, we have integration with that. And then what you could do, you could go ahead and add more capability, or what we use a word called instrumentation. So in your code, you could put an instrumentation and then it can publish information about your business or something else within your environment, should not be a problem. So like you, if you are getting a package from a service provider or you bought something on Amazon, so you get this tracking information, right? So this
Right.
tracking information is what we can capture for application 2, and it would look something like this. So here my request comes in, my Lambda service received it, service sent request to the function sent it to DynamoDB and recognition, and looks like this orange. So this gives me indication, looks like there is some issue with my service. This one is purple. This gives me again indication like there is a bottleneck happening. The green says everything is fine, but looks like there is some issues here and there's some issues here. So that's what I can check with my X-Ray. And if I go further, which we can call traces, I could see up to millisecond, microsecond that how all these components are working, where I have bottleneck. Like if I see here a request coming from my beanstalk, it went to different environment, it went to cache, authentication happened, how much time it took, where my DynamoDB. So if you see here, I have 400 error happening here. It took 194 millisecond. What was the issue? So I can further drill down in actual request level and see how these services are communicating with each other. That is what we can do with X-Ray.
Great. So this really helps with troubleshooting, I can see.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So see, think like that medical X-ray. So why sometimes you may have to go for an X-ray of your chest or maybe arm or leg, because something which is not visible from outside, doctor wants to have a better view of it, and that's why they send you to X-ray. That exact thing is X-ray doing for your application. So from upside you see request went in, response came out, but what happened within that is what X-ray can give you. What are the internal mechanisms of your application, how they are communicating, that is where X-ray can come in. So my analogy is medical X-ray gives you internal details of your body, and AWS X-Ray gives you information about your internal application communication.
absolutely makes sense. So CloudWatch logs is one type of log. Then I've also heard about something called as CloudTrail, and
Good question.
I believe I've seen it as a best practice in one of the well-architected reviews that we did. And so, tell me a little about that. How is CloudTrail different from the CloudWatch logs that we get?
Yeah, makes sense. So probably most of you have seen security camera. So once you have a camera, what it is doing, it is recording whoever comes in. Now, it could be a vendor coming to sell something to my house. It could be a cat walking around. It could be bird sitting on my porch, or it could be a burglar, or it could be a legitimate person coming to my house. Everything is getting recorded through the security camera hive. It is not discriminating that, hey, it is a bird, I don't want to record. Hey, it is a cat, I don't want to record. It is recording everything. It is surveillance. Same thing can happen with your AWS account too. Whenever you are sending a request to AWS, whatever method you use, whether you use the method of sending request through command line, or you have utilized your graphical interface, or you have used SDK, all these requests are API call. Those API call first go through IAM, and IAM decide whether we are going to allow this request or deny. Same time, CloudTrail is like a camera capturing all the information. Every API call which you are sending to an AWS endpoint is being stored into CloudTrail, and it can retain that trail or that information for as long as you want, and then that request goes into it. So whether it was allowed, whether it was denied, anything happened in your application, AWS endpoint, it is what we are recording into CloudTrail. So CloudTrail is a camera, whereas CloudWatch consider as a fire alarm into your house, which will trigger when that condition is met. Otherwise, it is not doing anything. It may collect your temperature information, it may collect the humidity level in your house, but it is collecting data, versus CloudTrail is recording whoever is sending API call to your environment. So that is CloudTrail versus CloudWatch. Now, why people get confused? Let me draw that. The confusion comes in because they both have log capabilities. So let me try to explain some information so that it would be easier for you to follow along. Give me a minute. I'm trying to bring up my whiteboard, and we will then get started from there. Give me one more minute. Yeah, it is coming up now. Yeah, you can draw. So this is your CloudWatch logs. CloudWatch logs can obviously capture information from your application logs. So application logs can send information there. And obviously once the data is here, you could now create a filter on top, and through that filter you could trigger some alarm and perform some additional action if the need be. Same thing is what we can do for CloudTrail also. So CloudTrail can by default capture information. So this is my CloudTrail, and CloudTrail can capture information. By default, it keeps data for 90 days, but if I want, I could push this data into an S3 bucket, and obviously now I could keep it as long as I want, no issues at all on that. the same data can be pushed to CloudWatch logs also. So the log which I am collecting, either I just keep them and keep them passively, and I would maybe see it maybe once in a year or 6 months or every month or whatever. But I could push this CloudTrail data into CloudWatch logs, and now I could start filtering things on that. So maybe I got lot of failed API call for a particular service. I could send this data to CloudWatch log, create a filter, and then based on that maybe set up an alarm which will inform everything. So these services can work independently, but they have a nice integration between each of them. So CloudTrail can feed its data to CloudWatch logs, and then you can perform more operation if the need be. Or you could say, I just want to retain it for longer period, so I could just keep it into S3. It is your decision. Does it
So
make sense?
I have a question here. Like these CloudTrail logs, I don't want anybody to go and tamper in there. There could be some private data in there.
Exactly.
So can they be encrypted, or
Yes,
is
there is a
there,
feature.
okay?
So there is an encryption, and even encryption is there, and we support a feature called integrity check. So let's say if I am an attacker, so to hide my footprint, the first thing I would like to modify is CloudTrail. So what we could do, whenever the CloudTrail delivers some log into an S3 bucket, with every log file, we can perform an integrity check, and we can store some values on that. It is like a footprint. If somebody goes and modifies the footprint, you would be able to see that somebody has modified or changed something on that. So encryption is supported, and obviously integrity checks are supported too. So if somebody tampers your log file, we would know about it, and then you can take corrective action on that. And another good practice which we recommend to our customers, that please push your log from different account to a central account which has very restrictive permission only for few people on S3. So maybe this is my account 1, account 2, account 3, and they all send data into a S3 bucket of account 4, and on this account I have given very few people access to it. So I am separating it, I am keeping the blast radius small. If somebody compromises my account 1, my logs are still stored somewhere else, so I could go ahead and then analyze these log and take some corrective action if the need be. So this is a best practice to keep your log separate into a altogether different account or into a different region if you want to. It is purely up to you how you want to handle it. So some best practices
So
exist
so
which we
these
could
accounts could
use
be,
for.
Ashish, in different regions. So we all collect all these logs into one account in a separate region. Are you saying that? So we could have different accounts in different regions also, right?
See, account is not region specific. Account is an
Okay.
account. What you could do, you could say, hey, my resources are into only Northern Virginia, so I want to capture trail of Northern Virginia. But
Yeah.
what we recommend also, that for services which are global like IAM,
Hmm.
CloudFront, you should enable the global trail, so it will capture the global information, not just regional information. So it is your decision. You could make it a regional trail or you could make it a global trail. It is purely up to you to decide. Should not be a problem at all. So you could go ahead and do that. So history's information is captured, all endpoints, success or failure. It can store into S3 buckets, cross account, cross region supported, and we capture event in that. There are management event and data event also, which can capture like who accessed my S3 bucket, who performed this operation on my DynamoDB. So I should be able to get this information into CloudTrail. And on the storage side, Parna, as you said, for security, we can enable multi-factor authentication for delete. So if somebody is going to delete that S3 bucket data, I want to perform a MFA verification. So only I am restricting it to few people who have that privilege to perform it. So that is completely possible.
All right. And you just spoke about how we can have capture management API calls, that is creating buckets, for example. Now, data API calls could be a lot of them. So,
Yep.
is that a good practice to keep the data trail on? I mean, I am imagining that will be a whole lot of them.
So by default, it is not enabled. Now,
Okay.
it is my approach, and obviously it depends on different situation. What I would
Okay.
prefer, let's say I'm troubleshooting something. I have a bottleneck which I'm troubleshooting, I have a performance issue which I'm sorting, I may enable those data event to be captured for that period of time. Once I'm done with troubleshooting, let me not capture the data event because I don't want to keep on incurring cost associated with that.
Right.
So that's how I should be providing the access. But yes, if you want, if a legal requirement says you have to capture everything, nobody stops you. You could keep as much data into S3, should not be a problem.
I get it. Thanks for that, Ashish. So I think I am more or less quite certain about certain aspects of monitoring, but I would also want to ask you things about the pricing. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe if we could you could give me some idea about how I could manage pricing as well as my cloud costs.
Good. So yeah, pricing, sometimes people get confused because there are so many things to monitor in terms of pricing. I'll try to bifurcate some information into easy to consume fashion. So let's talk about very basic principles of pricing in AWS, that how AWS bills you for anything you use. There are three basic principles for it. First is pay as you go, right? Means like utility, electricity bill, your water bill, maybe your other type of utility services which you consume, you pay for that. So if I use more electricity in a month, I will pay more. If I use less, I would pay less. Same applies for AWS. We do not charge you for services unless you use them. So you pay as you go pricing, you start it, you pay for it. Once you stop it or once you remove it, you do not pay for it. That is the mainstream. So that is called pay as you go model. Same like utility. Now, say when you commit, when you are making a long term commitment to use our services, like for it could be a savings plan, it could be a reservation for RDS or maybe EC2 machine. So when you say, hey AWS, I am going to use your service for X amount of time, X amount of years, and this capacity. Can you give me a better discount? So answer is yes. Let's say my business requirement says that I need to have a EC2 machine running for with 6 CPU and 16 GB of RAM for 2 years. I could go and ask AWS to give me discounted price because I am committing to make that request. So that is a commitment based pricing. Anytime you make a commitment, you pay less money on that, like a reservation you are making. And
But does
there is
that
a
give
volume.
me flexibility, Ashish? I mean, if I'm committing to it, can I change the instance type? Say I initially I tried to use EC2, and now say we want to use Lambda or Fargate. So does it give
Yep.
me flexibility as well when I commit?
So yeah, there are two things which you have to think about it. Now I'll give you analogy so that you can think about how it works. So let's say you are building a flight ticket, right? So you're booking a flight now, or you are booking a hotel. Now, sometime flight and hotel will give you an option which says non-cancelable. So if you are very sure that you will be always traveling and there would be, I can't type and read at the same time, non-cancelable. Sorry for my mistakes. So if you are booking something like non-cancelable, then you may get a better discount or better pricing deal on that. But you want to have a flexible reservation where you say, hey, I want flexibility. My plan can change. Maybe I would go ahead with a different flight. Maybe I would go with a different room. So when you want a flexibility, in non-cancelable, the pricing discount is much higher, but in flexible, you will are sacrificing some discount because you are looking for flexibility, right? So same thing applies on this too. In AWS, we offer you an option which is called savings plan. And savings plan is your commitment. Now, in that commitment, you can be very certain and you could say, I would always use this, no requirement are going to change for me. So I could be very certain on that. So that time, the discount percentage you get is much higher. This is what we call as a EC2 savings plan. So in an EC2 savings plan, your savings are higher, but you have less flexibility to move around. But if you are looking for that, hey, I want to have flexibility, I may be changing my requirement, I may be having some changes afterward, maybe I will change my region, I would change my environment, maybe I would run Lambda, maybe I would run something else. So that time we say go for compute savings plan, and that gives you more flexibility. Savings are little less, but flexibility is much higher in this particular case. So you could have used your compute savings plan in this case.
But what is the minimum time duration you want need me to commit for? Is there any
Good
specific
question. So 1 year, and maximum up to 3 years. Now be aware, when you make a 1 year or 3 year commitment, based on your commitment, AWS provision that much infrastructure in their own data center. So even if you are not using it, you are still liable to pay for it. Like you have entered into a monthly rental agreement or a yearly rental agreement. Now you don't live in that house, but the agreement still continues and you have to still keep on paying the rent for it. Same thing here, because based on your commitment, we have a commitment made in our infrastructure. We added that much capacity to honor your request whenever it comes in. So that's why it will be a 1 year or 3 year commitment which you would be making. I'm seeing a question in the chat. Is there a 2 year commitment? Answer is no on that. It is either 1 year or 3 year which we are utilizing.
So, Ashish, what happens after 1 year? Say I've committed for 1 year and I have forgotten to renew it. What happens? Do I still pay at the same rate, or is it at a different rate? What happens to that?
Full price. So don't forget that. And that's why we have services like savings plan and alerts available. So what it would do, it would alert you that, hey, you are nearing to that renewal. Should you go ahead and renew it? Because if you do not renew it, you would start paying the same full price on that. Now I want to clarify one thing here, that either having a commitment or on demand does not have any problem with the technical aspect of your application. So your EC2 is still 4 CPU and 16 GB of RAM, whether you pay for on demand or pay for reserve. But if you have reservation, you pay less prices. If you do not have reservation, you pay full price on that. So your instance will not stop. We will not remove your resource. It will keep on running. But now because the discount has ended, you end up paying more money, or you end up paying the full prices. So don't skip it. And we have alerts to generate this type of report and give you the information or metrics to show you that you are nearing to your savings plan completion and you should go ahead and renew those things. So that can happen.
That's great. But is there any service which can recommend whether I should go for a savings plan or whether I should go for on demand? I mean, we have minimal
Yes.
knowledge in that area.
No problem. So we can do something called compute optimizer. Obviously your solution architect can help you, but we have a service which is called compute optimizer. So what it would do, it would collect your historical data, and on that historical data, it will apply its machine learning and analytics or artificial intelligence logic, and will recommend that, hey, looks like you use this instance very often, or this is what you are keeping it for a very long period. Better is that you go for a commitment, and this type of commitment would be helpful, and we will give you bifurcation. You go for X, this much saving, you go for Y, this much saving, so you can make an informed decision based on that. And you could start small. That is what I recommend. Let's say you want to buy 10,000 instances. Don't create a purchase order for 10,000 instances at the very moment. Maybe create a purchase order for 100 instances, monitor its effectiveness, and once you see it is effectively working for you, then increase your purchases. Do not go all in one shot. You may make a mistake, and that may be very costly mistake you may make.
Okay, that's great.
Now, I want to talk about one more thing. What happens, Parna, that lots of customer get confused because there are so many parameters in every service to monitor. I want to
Exactly.
give you a basic information. In every service, you will be finding that we charge you for compute, we charge you for storage, we charge you for network traffic, and we charge you for some other parameters which we are using. I use the analogy of, let's say you are going to visit London or coming somewhere. So if you are coming to, let's say, London, you need to pay for the ticketing to come here. You need to pay for the stay because you would be staying here for a long, unless you have some friend or family. And then you would be paying for any activity you are performing into London. Let's say you went to Madame Tussauds, or you went to London Eye, or you went to a river cruise or whatever. Same thing applies in your AWS environment too. So compute is where you are performing any activity. Could be Lambda function, could be your EC2, could be container. Storage is obviously when you are storing something, could be S3, could be EFS. And network, we mostly charge you for data transfer out. This is same like moving from one location to another. So in most services, you pay for these three things. Let's say, give an example. In S3, compute, how it is calculated? It is calculated based on number of requests or number of API calls you made, because that is where computation is happening. Storage is obviously capacity, right? And then whenever you have data transfer out or somebody downloads your data, that time you pay for it. This happens for your S3 service. Similar concept applies for EC2. Compute means how long you run it. You run it for 1 hour or 2 hour or 10 days or whatever. So that's what you pay for. Storage capacity, EBS volume associated, and then when there is a data transfer happening, you are paying for that. And apart from that, other parameter like in S3, it could be reporting services you are using. Maybe you are using Lambda function with S3. Maybe in EC2, you are using something like your reservations, or you are using elastic IP associated with that, or maybe you want to run dedicated instances. So these three parameters are mostly for every service, and for every service there may be some additional parameters which are used to calculate the charges. So keep these basic information. You pay for compute, you pay for storage, you pay for network, and some service specific cost which will be added to your application.
Makes sense. But Ashish, like it's humanly impossible to remember all these parameters which contribute to the cost of a service. Isn't there any way I can estimate somewhere? Because we are running some proof of concepts, we are experimenting constantly, and I need to share this information with stakeholders before they agree to fund our project, right? So, where can
Good.
I do that?
So one is, let's consider a situation when your project has not started, it is still into a design phase. So that time you could use something called calculator.aws. So that calculator.aws website will give you services and where you can estimate I need 10 EC2, I need 2 databases, I have 10 Lambda function, I have this and that, and you can estimate the prices. And when you are running workload, that time you could use Cost Explorer. So Cost Explorer is when you are running your workload in AWS, and when you are estimating, that time you would be utilizing things like calculator.aws. So these tools will help you to get most out of your cost estimation or pricing details.
Okay. And will Cost Explorer also help me to categorize the cost based on my cost centers, my project team? How do I get visibility into every category of the cost? Will it help me with that? Does it show me anything visually?
See, it can be done in two different ways. So what we have some customers which say that, hey, I am running a project, and for project A, I would have account 1. I am running another project, project B, and for that I will have account 2. So this is the best possible way of doing cost calculation, because you can track the cost of every account and you would know what is the cost of that project. But customers
Right.
environment is not that simple. They may be running
Exactly.
lots and lots of commonly used workload. So maybe project A and project B have their own account, but there is a common account in which we are running services like Active Directory, maybe we are running antiviruses, maybe we are running mailing system. So how I identify the cost of project A and project B there? So in that cases, we could use tags. So you
Okay.
could associate tags. You could associate tag to a VPC for project A. How much data transfer happens from that? You could tag a Lambda function of that project, a DynamoDB table, a CloudWatch log, an S3 bucket, and based on the tags, you could generate reports if the need be. So I want to know how much I paid for project A, but in project A there was a QA environment, how much I paid for QA environment within that. So as much bifurcation you want, you could go ahead and achieve using tags. Should not be a problem. You could go ahead and use that.
Okay. So can I get reports based on usage also of different services or only costs?
See, we have both type of parameters. You could see some usage like, hey, how much I have consumed in S3, how much storage I am keeping. And then I can say, okay, for this much storage, what is my cost associated with that? So we
Right.
can check capacity as well as we can check the cost associated, should not be a problem. And you don't have to always come and generate reports around it. What you could also do, you could go ahead and generate some report. Let me show some dashboard to you, which we are called Kudos dashboard. And through that, you could build dashboard like this. So let it come and it would give you holistic information. So your CEO, CFO will not want to go into a specific AWS account and check it. So for them, you could build a dashboard like this, and I can clearly see here that, hey, I have paid 754 into 3 months ago. My cost went down 8%, 693. This month my cost went up. Previous month 805. And then this is total account. This is my total, and see this thing here, tag cloud. So this shows
Okay.
I paid the most money in US East 1, less money in EU Central, and much less money in AF South and ME South 1. you could create these type of tag for your projects or your account. So project 1, I spent this much, project 2 this much, project 3 this much, and you can create different type of report like trends which are there. You could generate report for compute, you can generate report for your storage and backup. So huge number of information is available, and you can create these smart dashboard which can automatically update, and based on that you could take some informed decision if the need be. Shouldn't be a problem at all.
Absolutely. So I can actually query into the Cost Explorer API, I believe, and do
Exactly.
programmatic reports. Okay,
See,
that's great.
everything is an API call in AWS. Whatever you do is everything is an API. So you could create your own dashboard. What we also see, some customer will take this data and put it into their own dashboarding tool or own reporting tool. So they already have a dashboard, they want to push some data. So that is completely possible. You could do that. Or if you go to Cost Explorer, there are already existing report which you could get, should not be a problem. So let's say if I quickly give you a tour of billing and cost management, obviously I don't use this account for production, so it may have just $300-400 as a cost, but nothing huge. But all the data is available, and you can generate report based on that. Should not be issue. So I'm here and I am going to Cost Explorer here. I should be able to get a very basic bifurcation based on services, based on my region, based on account, and then I can go granular and create report based on tag, based on specific service, based on a specific parameters on that. So that is all possible here. As I could see, my cost was very high in October. Maybe I
Right.
used lot of EC2 in that time, but in March I am paying more money for VPC. You can see $93. I have not paid so much money for Security Hub or WAF. So this type of report is there, and this is just a standard service based report. Similarly, you could create report based on the tag, and you may want to know how much I am paying for a specific application or a cost center or a department. So that is completely possible, but you have to tag. Your business knows what tags to associate and when not to associate tag, but most resources support tagging.
Okay. So I guess tagging is like a best practice, and I think we can create some config rules, if I'm not wrong, to ensure that all our resources are tagged. Is that
Yes,
true? And
so obviously we don't want resources to remain untagged, because then we will not be able to track. So we should be having an option where you can have cost tags created, and based on that you could verify if somebody is missing it. Let me raise an alarm, maybe inform that owner of the resource, or maybe take a corrective action and shut down the resource. Unless the tag is present, I don't want to move forward. So that all can be done.
makes sense. And just a quick question. So you were showing us the billing screen. So can I send out some notifications when my bill crosses a certain threshold, just like you had shown us CloudWatch alarms, right? Can I send out a notification
Oh
using
yes,
that?
I got a notification in morning, so let me quickly show that to you. So what you could do, you could set up a budget based on your requirements. So see this budget which
Okay.
has alarm which has come. Let me bring it up on the screen here. So this is an email which was sent to me. It came today 27th 4/12. I had set up a budget to have consumed only 400, but I have set up that, hey, if I am going beyond $340, please inform me. So I've set up like when I have consumed 80% of the budget, I want to be notified, and I got an email that, hey Ashish, you have used this much. Is it actual cost? This is the budget. And now I can go in dashboard and go ahead and check it that where my cost is going, and I can take corrective action. So there are budget actions also. Based on that, you can restrict user from spinning up more resources unless they fix the problem or they ask you for budget improvement or not. So that all automation can be there. As you could see, I have my budget. Few budgets I have crossed, 400 and $300. As you could see, I am still not crossing this $1,400 budget. So this type of budgeting can be done, should not be an issue.
Looks awesome. That really helps,
All right.
Ashish.
So Parna, I think it is good enough time for cost discussion. Obviously, cost has lots of things, but what I would prefer here now to take a step back and then discuss some more additional detail so that we can move forward. Time is always a challenge in these environment. We could always see that we always plan to finish it within 40 minutes or 45 minutes, but yeah, time is always a challenge in these situations.
Sure, Ashish. That gave a lot of insight, and I hope for all of you as well, you've got an idea about what monitoring is, how we can manage our costs. So that was a great discussion. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. And now I would like to add Remy to the call. And what we did, we had a question, and we want to see that how many questions were answered right and what are the common mistakes people made, so you could correct it. So Remy, welcome and thanks for creating these quizzes. I would add you to the screen, and you could talk about the most missed question for quiz 3.
Yes, hi everyone. So thanks for adding me on the stage. Lots of great question on the chat today. Let's come back a little on the last week domain. So I see there is more than 100 students that participate in these quizzes. That's really great. We have two questions that are with less accuracy. The first one is this one. So I'll let you add on the comment what you will put, which AWS service provide a scalable and fully managed file storage system for use with EC2 instances. Feel free to put on the comments if you want to play, if you didn't do the quiz. So most of the answer, of course, should be, yeah, we have Vandana, Divya, Manoj, awesome. So yes, exactly, this is EFS. So we were looking for EFS, remember, when we talk about a scalable, fully managed file storage service, here we talk about EFS. So last week, there is this discussion with Richard about what's a file storage. So remember, there is an abstraction layer on top of a block storage. A great way to use an EFS file system is typically to be able to share it across multiple EC2 instances. And the great thing is you can go even into multiple AZ. So you can have like your highly available infrastructures with your EC2 instance across multiple AZ and EFS as a file system. So great catch for everyone. The second question that was the most missed on the last week is this one. So which AWS service allow you to establish a dedicated network connection from your on-premises environment to your Amazon VPC, Virtual Private Cloud? So option are VPN, Direct Connect, site-to-site VPN, Transit Gateway. I'll let you answer as well. So for the one who didn't do the quiz, remember, do your homework when we send you those quizzes. So yes, that's correct, Ganesh, Asma. So you all know about this stuff. That's great. So this is Direct Connect. So remember, there is no service inside of AWS that is called AWS VPN. So it cannot be this answer. We have client VPN, we have site-to-site VPN, but no AWS VPN. AWS site-to-site VPN, remember, is not a dedicated network. Is an IPsec VPN. So you have a customer gateway, a private virtual private gateway. You connect both of them, and you have an IPsec VPN. A transit gateway is to interconnect your VPC, so it's not what we want here. We want a dedicated network, this fiber optic link, and this is AWS Direct Connect. So remember, this is the level for the Cloud Practitioner exam. So this is not question from the exam directly, but it's just for you also to make a sense of the knowledge check that you've seen during the sessions. We will send you, and Ashish will send you the Domain 4 quizzes for this session. Just a question for all of you. Who already registered for the Cloud Practitioner exam? I just want to see on the chat if you can just answer to this. Who will pass in the couple of weeks the exam? Remember, the key things to pass an exam is to register. So if you're not registered, how can you pass the exam? So remember, oh, nice, Zenura, you're totally awesome. Banu also, okay. So remember, what you need to register for the exam in order to get the certification. So Cloud Practitioners level is quite simple. You need to do your homework. We send you some links with Ashish. So remember to look at the page of the certification of AWS, where it gives you the course outline, what is evaluated, as well, what is the requirement. We will send you also those different quizzes in order for you to practice. And I just want to congratulate some of you that did the quizzes with 100% of accuracy. So that's great to have the consistency. So we have Subhashini, Armanda, Arelanes, just give it some name, Gracie, well done. We have Rinku as well. So we have a couple of folks. Congratulations for your consistency and for the 100%. So that's it for me, Ashish. If you have any question, feel free to ask. We are here to help as well. You're on mute, Ashish.
Sorry, I was on mute. So thanks for putting these questions. Obviously, it takes time to set up these things and then verify and then check who passed and who has not. So please, everyone, attempt these quizzes. Even if you know it, it is good reinforcement of the learning. It gives you confidence also. So please go ahead and do it. It will give you lots of insight on that. Now, I also want to talk about the giveaway. So if you remember, we are doing giveaway every week, and instead of randomly picking the people, we are selecting people who are active. So we would have a book giveaway, which is coming from Cloud Career Journey, and there would be 10 Whizlab account to be given away for sandboxes. And we are also running a 50% discount on resources. So like if you are planning for a 6 month 1 year journey, which you should, if you are planning to move, then you should be able to get discount on starter kit or book. Starter kit gives you access to lots of resources, like you should be able to get information from different provider, get sandboxes, get learning resources, do quizzes. So that would give you lots and lots of access. So these are the giveaways which we are doing. We are not selecting randomly. We are already awarding the people who are vocal, who are attempting the quizzes, who are ensuring that they are spreading the word about BESA, who are encouraging us. So we are limiting it to few people. 10 plus 1 is what we would be every time selecting. All right. Prasad, do you have to add anything here?
No, all good, Ashish. I think you summarized it well. We are looking for more and more active engagement, and thank you everyone for joining. 180 plus people joining every week is not. We understand that you are joining in different time zones, so thank you so much. Hope these sessions are adding value for you. And we know that a lot of people watch it offline, which is completely fine, and keep coming your the engagement in terms of asking questions or in terms of spreading the word.
Makes sense. Okay, so week three winners, we have not been able to provide every access to everyone. We were busy with Summit, but if your name is here, you should be getting access if you just reach out to us with your email addresses, and we should be having email sent out to you. It may take little time this time because of being busy into Summit, but yeah, everyone should get access. It should not be a problem. Now we want to just use 10-15 minutes of last discussion with Parna. Parna has pick up a good grade deck on exam preparation. Obviously, we run out of time as expected every time, so we would let her share the screen and then we can talk about some of the exam preparation. So Parna, if you want to share the screen, we could go from there and then you can explain about the exam preparation resources. Thank you.
Sure, Ashish. Thanks, Ashish and Prasad. I think those are some great getaways, and it should bring you back definitely session after session. So today is only the fourth session, folks. We have 8 more sessions to go. So, firstly, for the people who have consistently come for all 4 weeks or watched all 4 recordings, kudos to you. You've reached the fourth week, and that's the week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4 that we had planned for. So ideally you should be ready now and you should be doing your mock tests. So I hope the ones who are appearing, who've scheduled their exams, you are doing sufficient full length tests. So I don't mean just few questions here and there. I mean purely timed uh, papers that you've gone in and purchased and done those exams. So make sure you do them regularly every 2 3 days. So I'll be sharing a few tips with you. The ones who've already given this exam, this is a good revision for you. So anything that you're learning new in these sessions will help you even in your solution architect associate exams as well as in the other ones. All right. So now, as per the cloud practitioner exam, the foundational hands-on is essential. A little bit of getting started with computing, storage, networking. If you would like to go and do those hands-on, because seeing is believing, right? Rather than just going and reading theory, I believe that you should do a little bit of hands-on, whether it's in your free tier account or I'm giving you 2 other options also which you can explore. So one of them is AWS Educate. I am not sure whether any of you have heard about it. It's a great portal, and there are a lot of content over there, digital courses. Plus there are these free hands-on labs. So you can see on the screen there are a couple of them, almost I think 11 of them. But essentially you should do all the getting started ones, the compute, storage, networking, databases. This will give you the bare basics. Okay, so just go and do those, and the rest of them, you can see there's serverless, then there is even web application development. You can do those when you are trying to ramp up for the solution architect one. This is option one. The other option for you to do a little bit of hands on to get a feel of the AWS console, the feel of the services, is going and doing it in a gamified fashion. So if you've heard about Cloud Quest, okay, so this is a virtual world, and you have an avatar, and you're moving through a 3D space, and you're solving challenges. It is really good fun. And after you solve these challenges, you actually get a Cloud Practitioner Cloud Quest batch, which you can go and put it up on LinkedIn. Adds a lot of credibility, and it will also give you a lot of confidence before appearing for the exam. So I highly encourage you to go and try this. This is for free. Even the previous one, the Educate one, which I told you about, that's also free. So this is for your hands-on practice. And now coming to the certification exam. So tips about the exam. So this is nothing to do with only Cloud Practitioner. This applies to any kind of AWS certification exam that you're going to give in future as well. Now, giving practice tests, mock tests is really essential. As I said, do it every 2 days or 3 days. And after doing the test, you might not perform really well in the first few. Do not get disheartened. It is very normal. But what is important is your learning after that. Okay, so go through all the correct as well as the incorrect answers, because even for the correct ones, you probably thought about it in some other direction which may not be the correct one, or you might get a lot of added benefit from the explanation that is given there. So thoroughly go through the incorrect as well as the correct answer explanation. That is one thing. Then as I told you earlier also, give the full length exam uh, within time. Okay, so there are options to pause the timer. I would suggest not to do that. Try and get the exact feel. It helps you in time management. So if you are finishing on time in your practice test, then you are more confident that on the actual exam day you will be able to do that too. Okay, so give a timed exam. Sometimes it is great to team up with a colleague or a friend or a buddy, and y'all can study together. Why? Because obviously there's accountability, and y'all can share learnings with each other, and you are more focused because you'll be constantly asking where are you. There is some amount of healthy competition also. So that's a great tip I'll give you. Try and study together. Now coming to questions, I'll be going through a couple of questions. I don't know how much time we have, but I'm hoping that you'll have seen a couple of questions that I've posted in the group as well. So some of the tips that you need to pick up is, look out for the right keywords. So some questions are really bulky. It could be up to like nearly 5 lines. But you need to pick up the keywords, and based on those keywords, you need to decide on the answer. Okay, so look out for some keywords. There might be some redundant information there which may not be relevant at all. Okay, so that is one thing. Next, after you read the question, do not immediately look at all the options. So what I would suggest is, after looking at the main question, after looking at the stem and then the final question, think of the answer. What do you think the answer would be? Based on what you thought the answer was, then look at all the options. You will probably find your answer there. It's going to be a match, and it will be really easy for you to just go and click on it. Okay, the third tip I'll give you is elimination. Now, say you're really confused, you've read the question and you really have no idea. Use the process of elimination, meaning out of those 4 or 5 options, there will be certain options which definitely do not fit the bill. Okay, so you can clearly eliminate them. So, say from 4, you will come down to 2. So, out of those 2, I will say give it your best guess. Now, do not spend too much amount of time thinking and overthinking. Give it your best guess and move ahead. Why? Because you can flag it for review, and later on at the end of your exam, if you have time, you can come back and review it. Also, there is no negative marking, so do not skip, it doesn't make sense, right? So answer everything, you might just get it correct, right? So that's another thing. Like I said, do not spend too much time. I want you to complete the test, right? You should not be spending more than a couple of minutes on each question. So doing mock tests is essential, so you'll know your time management as well. And finally, for any of you who are non-English speakers, remember there is an option for exam accommodation. So when you go to book your exam, there is this page, there is this link which asks you, do you need exam accommodations? If you select that, you get 30 minutes extra. That's a whole lot of extra time. So do not forget to do that, especially if you are a non-native English speaker. Okay, so these are some of the tips, and please ensure that you follow this. I will flash it even at the end after I go through a couple of questions. So Ashish, do you think we have time for going through a couple of questions?
I think Parna, we are at 10:30, so we could like probably have question into next session. So
Okay.
I want, because every one of us also has commitment, so I want to
Sure.
answer few questions first. I'm getting a lot of messages that people are not getting emails. So thank you, Parna. These are really good top tips. And please, everyone, check the LinkedIn group where Parna is posting lots and lots of quizzes also. So we want to ensure that you check those things. And I want to address that you are not getting email. I would say please check your emails again, because what I'm sending every day, every weekend or every Monday probably is an email like this. Now, people who reach out to me and say, hey, I have not got email, when I track their information, they have opened it but probably have not checked the email properly. So every email would contain information about recording of the session. There would be information about the winners who have won. This is from week 3, and there would be links here which we are putting, like here what we covered in the week. You could download the slide deck also. You could get additional resources, like you go to these Udemy training which I created. Quiz links are also into the email. Additional resources which you want you to prepare for, all of these are there, but obviously you have to read it. We can send email but we cannot read it for you, so it is your duty that you read these email. If you are not getting it, check your spam emails again. If you still don't get it, please reach out to me and I would be happy to check why it is not getting delivered to you. Plus, if you are joining us from LinkedIn, we would request you to join it from YouTube, because then the comments will be easily available for you. When you answer our question on LinkedIn, it is not visible to everyone. Best would be that you join on YouTube live, and I would be happy to share link, should not be an issue. If somebody can from group put the chat link in the chat for YouTube stream, that would be really, really nice. So everyone, please try to join it from YouTube rather than being on LinkedIn, and check your spam. If you still can't figure out, let me know and I would be happy to answer any questions related to it. So these are the email, and everything is there, all the resources. Keep it in properly saved and read it properly. There are tons of resources to handle and get from there. Anything else anyone wants to add?
No, Ashish, I
Parna,
think I'm
tips and
good.
tricks were really nice. So really good for that, and hopefully it would help a lot of people to get started.
Sure.
Thanks
So
everyone.
I'll
Go ahead.
just let people know what we have in store for them for the next 8 weeks. So I'll just show that.
Yeah.
Can I share?
Yep.
Right. Right. So, folks, so we still have 8 more weeks to go. So we've completed 4 weeks of Cloud Practitioner. Next 8 weeks, the plan is to go step by step through the topics for the Solution Architect Associate role. So this is for the first 4 weeks, followed by the next 4 weeks. So this is what we have planned. So please come back for further learning. Even if you've given the exam, this will be additional value to you, even if you give your the developer associate exams and the sysops, because there's a lot of overlap there as well. Yeah, so that's about it, Ashish, and just wanted to wish people who are going to be giving the cloud practitioner exam, uh, please let us know, and we would love to celebrate with you if you feel that we've added value to your learning journey. Yeah,
Great.
thank you so much and good
And
luck.
I added one link into the chat that is for registering of weekly giveaways. So we'd still be selecting few people from this giveaway, and obviously most of them would be selected from the participation. But please register here. We can have giveaways based on this also. So few people would be selected from here, and few people would be selected from their participation, and few randomly from YouTube comments. So anyone who is participating in any other channel should be having an equal chance of winning the things. And we want to help you out. Reach out to us if any suggestions or anything is there. I will add other person into the chat onto the screen. So thanks Prasad for answering question. Remy answered question. Nicole answered lots of question. So feel free to leverage us. Obviously we may not have time to answer every single question, but yeah, any important question if we missed, ping us again and we would try to answer as much as we can, and give us feedback. Now we will go into solution architecting. It would be more deep dive. So how we can make these things better, how we can give you the best return on the time you're investing. So that's why we require feedback from all of you. And if you like this session, feel free to share on LinkedIn, put details on YouTube, like our videos. That would be much easier for everyone to get hold of. Thank you so much. Any last thoughts, anyone? All right then, all the best. Have a good weekend and we'll see you again into the next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.